Book of Heaven Volume 3 by Luisa Piccarreta. Page 55–61. March 14, 1900. How to Draw Souls to Catholicism. Since the confessor had given me the obedience to pray to the Lord that he would manifest to me what should be done in order to draw souls to Catholicism and to remove so much unbelief, I prayed for several days, and the Lord would not deign to manifest himself on this point. Finally, this morning I found myself outside of myself, transported into a garden which seemed to be the garden of the church, and in it there were many priests and other dignities, who were discussing this topic. While they were discussing, a dog of enormous size and strength came out, and the majority of them were so scared and exhausted as to let themselves be bitten by that beast, and then they would withdraw like cowards from the enterprise. That fierce dog had no strength to bite only those who had Jesus in their hearts as their center, who would thus form the center of all of their actions, thoughts and desires. Ah, yes, Jesus formed a seal for these people, and that beast would become so weak as to have not even the strength to breathe. Now, while they were discussing, I heard Jesus behind my shoulders saying, "All other societies know who belongs to their party, only my church does not know who her children are. The first step is to know who those are who belong to her, and these you can know by establishing a reunion one day, to which you will invite them, so that who is Catholic should convene to the appointed place for this reunion. And there, with the help of the lay Catholics, they should decide what it is advisable to do. The second step is to oblige to confession those Catholics who convene, which is the most important thing that renews man and forms the true Catholics. And this, not only for those who are present, but they should oblige the leaders to oblige their subjects to confession. And if they do not succeed with gentle manners, they should dismiss them from their service. Once each priest has formed the body of his Catholics, then will they be able to advance to superior steps. In fact, recognizing the opportunity of the moment, the way to penetrate into other parties, and the prudence in exposing themselves, is like the pruning of trees, which makes them produce large and mature fruits. But if the tree is not pruned, it does make, yes, a beautiful display of leaves and of flowers, but as soon as a frost comes, or a wind blows, since the tree does not have enough sap and strength to sustain so many flowers in order to change them into fruits, the flowers fall off, and the tree remains stripped. The same happens in the things of religion. First you must form a suitable body of Catholics, so as to be able to confront the other parties, and then you can come to penetrating into the other parties to form one single party." After he said this, I did not hear him any more, and without even seeing him, I found myself inside myself. Who can say my pain at not having seen blessed Jesus for the whole day, and the tears I had to shed? March 15, 1900. Jesus feels disarmed by the victim souls. Since he continued not to come, I was consumed with sorrow and I felt such a fever as to become delirious. Now, since the confessor came to celebrate the divine sacrifice, I received communion, but I could not see my dear Jesus as usual, so I began to speak my nonsense. "Tell me, my good, why do you not make yourself seen? This time it seems to me that I have given you no occasion to withdraw. How can you just leave me like this? Ah, not even the friends of this earth act in this way. When they have to be apart, at least they say good-bye to each other, and you? You say not even good-bye to me? How can it be? Is this the way to behave? Forgive me if I speak in this way, it is the fever that makes me delirious, and makes me reach folly. Who can say all the nonsense I spoke to him? It would be like wanting to waste time. Now, while I was raving and crying, Jesus showed now one hand, now one arm. Then I saw the confessor giving me the obedience to suffer the crucifixion, and Jesus, as though forced by obedience, made himself seen, and immediately I said to him, "Why were you not letting yourself be seen?" And he, showing a serious appearance, said, "It is nothing, it is nothing. It is that I want to chastise the earth, and if I am in good relations even with one creature, I feel disarmed and I have no strength to lay hand to the chastisements, because when I make myself seen, if you see that I have to send chastisements, you begin to say, 'Pour them into me, make me suffer,' and I feel conquered by you, so I never lay hand to the chastisements. And men do nothing but grow bolder. Now, as the confessor continued to repeat the obedience of making me suffer the crucifixion, Jesus showed himself slow in letting me do this obedience, not like the other times in which he immediately wanted me to submit myself. He said to me, "And you, what do you want to do?" And I, "Lord, whatever you want." So, turning to the confessor with a serious aspect, he said to him, "You too want to bind me by giving her this obedience to suffer?" And while saying this, he began to share the pains of the cross with me. Then, showing himself appeased, he poured his bitternesses, and then he added, "Where is the confessor?" And I, "Lord, I don't know where he went. Indeed, I don't see him with us anymore." And he, "I want him, because just as he refreshed me, I want to refresh him." March 17, 1900. Sorrow of the Pope. Humility. This morning blessed Jesus made me see the Holy Father with open wings, going in search of his children in order to gather them under his wings, and I could hear his laments, saying, my children, how many times have I tried to gather you under my wings, and you escape me? Oh, please, listen to my moans, and have compassion for my sorrow." And while saying this, he cried bitterly. It seemed that it was not only the secular that were moving away from the Pope, but also priests, and these gave greater sorrow to the Holy Father. How pitiful it was to see the Pope in this position! After this, I saw Jesus, who echoed the laments of the Holy Father, and added, "Few are those who have remained faithful, and these few live like foxes withdrawn inside their dens. They are afraid to expose themselves in order to pull their children away from the mouths of the wolves. They speak, they propose, but those are all words thrown to the wind. They never come to deeds." Having said this, he disappeared. After a little while he came back. I felt all annihilated within myself in the presence of Jesus, and he, seeing me annihilated, told me, "My daughter, the more you lower yourself within yourself, the more I feel drawn to lower myself toward you, and to fill you with my grace." Here is how humility is bearer of light. March 20, 1900. Jesus is forced to chastise, and the victim's soul tries to placate him. Having received communion, I saw my sweet Jesus inviting me to go out with him, on the condition, however, that if I was to go with him, wherever I would see that Jesus was forced to send chastisements because of sins, I should not oppose him so that he would not send them. With this condition we went out, going round the earth. At first I began to see areas, not too far from us, which were all withered, especially at certain points. So, turning to him I said, "Lord, how can these poor people go on if they lack the food to nourish themselves? Oh, please. You can do anything, just as you made it wither, make it become green again." And since he had the crown of thorns, I stretched out my hand, telling him, "My good, what have these people done to you? Did they perhaps put this crown of thorns on you? Well then, give it to me, so you will be placated, and will give them food so as not to let them perish." And removing it from him, I pressed it onto my head. While I was doing this, Jesus told me, "It shows that I cannot take you with me, because taking you and being unable to do anything is the same." And I, "Lord, I have not done anything. Forgive me if you know that I have done evil, but, oh please, take me with you." And he, "Your way of acting binds me everywhere." And I am not the one who does this, it is you yourself who make me operate in this way, because in being with you, I see that all things are yours, and if I did not care about your things, it seems to me that I would not care about you yourself. Therefore, you must forgive me if I act in this way, because I do it for love of you, and you must not drive me away because of this. So we continued to go around. I did as much as I could not to tell him anything at certain points so that he would not chastise, in order not to give him any occasion to make me withdraw and lose his lovable presence. But where I could not, I would begin to oppose him. We arrived at some place in Italy where they were making a plot which was to cause a great disorder, but I did not understand what it was, because as I began to say, "Lord, do not allow this, poor people. How shall they go on?" Seeing that I insisted and wanted to prevent him, Jesus told me with authority, "Withdraw. Withdraw." And removing a belt of nails and pins which he wore, sunken inside his flesh, and which made him suffer very much. He added, "Withdraw and take this belt with you, for you will give me great relief." And I, "Yes, I will put it on myself in your place, but let me be with you." And he, "No, withdraw." And he said this with such authority that, unable to resist, in one instant I found myself inside myself, and I was unable to understand what that plot was about. March 25, 1900. The incarnate Word is like sun for souls. This morning my adorable Jesus, in the act of coming, told me, just as the sun is the light of the world, so did the Word of God, in incarnating himself, become the light of souls. And just as the material sun gives light in general and to each one in particular, so much so, that each one can enjoy it as if it were his own, in the same way, the Word, while giving light in general, is sun for each one in particular, so much so, that each one can have this divine sun as if it were for himself alone. Who can say what I understood about this light and the beneficial effects that abound in souls who keep this sun as if it were their own? It seemed to me that, by possessing this light, the soul dispels darkness, just as the material sun, by rising over our horizon, dispels the darkness of the night. If the soul is cold, this divine light warms her. If she is naked of virtues, it fecundates her. If she is inundated by the pestilent disease of lukewarmness, with its heat it absorbs that bad humor. In a word, so as not to be too long, this divine sun, introducing her into the center of its sphere, covers the soul with all its rays and reaches the point of transforming the soul into its very light. After this, since I was feeling all weary, wanting to refresh me, Jesus told me, "This morning I want to delight in you." And he began to make his usual loving stratagems.